Buenas noches. Welcome to Nita Bisita.
A few years ago, during a visit to Guam by a U.S. congressional delegation, I asked one of the members what impressed him the most about Guam. Without hesitation and with deep sincerity, he said, "It's schools and churches. Keep them filled and everything else follows." At dinner that evening, he asked, "How did the Catholic Church become so dominant and prominent on Guam?" And this is what I told him. Considering the intense hostility that prevailed during the early years of the Spanish administration of the Marianas, it is a wonder indeed that the church managed to establish a foundation at all, much less grow to become what it is today. Magellan's heavy-handed treatment of the ancient Chamorros was not an isolated incident. In the decades that followed, many ships stopped on Guam, Spanish, Dutch, and English, and their crew considered the natives heathens and treated them disdainfully. By the time the first Catholic mission was established in 1668, the Chamorros had had many opportunities to witness firsthand the arrogance and the brutal ways of the Europeans. Clash was inevitable between heathens of the Marianas and uncivilized Christians from Spain. For almost a quarter of a century, between 1671 and 1695, a state of conflict existed in the Marianas. Because the crown was inseparable from the cross in those days, the missionaries frequently found themselves in the crossfire. Their courage, devotion to their cause, and their advocacy of native grievances against the crown was not lost on the native population, and their apparent disregard for their own safety in carrying out the missionary work among the Chamorros led to the martyrdom of 10 priests and 2 brothers in a span of 15 years. For their part, the Chamorros fought hard and bravely with spears, slings, and stones, but finally succumbed to a smaller force armed with powerful muskets. Then came 2 epidemics of European diseases for which there was no immunity among the Chamorros: influenza in 1688 and smallpox in 1700. By 1710, the Chamorro population was reduced to about 4,000, roughly 10% of what it is estimated to be before the war started. For the next 3/4 of a century, the Jesuit missionaries on Guam built Guam's first churches and schools. Their willingness to work hard won them a very special place in the hearts of the native population. The Augustinian Recollect and the Capuchin missionaries who followed built upon that solid foundation. In turn, the Chamorros embraced Catholicism with a passion which has remained unabated for centuries. The most recent manifestation of this took place following World War II, when the churches of Guam were almost totally destroyed. Using as a symbol a bird from Egyptian mythology that consumed itself by fire after 500 years and rose renewed from its ashes, Bishop Baumgartner rallied the faithful with these words: "The phoenix rises." And rose it did, village by village, year by year, until all members of the faith had a house of God within walking distance of their home, as well as a magnificent cathedral in Agana, the oldest American city in the Pacific Basin. In commenting about the successful rebuilding and expanding of the church in the Marianas, Bishop Baumgartner thanked God for giving the mission a San Vittorius to start the work during the Spanish administration, a Father Palomo to see the church through the difficult days readjusting to the American occupation at the turn of the century, and Father Duenas to set a marvelous example during the Japanese occupation. And that was what I told my friend at dinner. Upon leaving the legislature the following day and seeing the cathedral towering over him, my friend said, "Do you guys understand that one of the basic tenets in our Constitution is the separation of church and state?" I told him that the church was separated from the legislature by a street. "I know, Ben, but did you really have to name the street Jalan Santo Papa with a statue of the Pope in the middle of it?" As he stared at me waiting for an answer, I said, "David, would you like to have lunch with me at a Chamorro restaurant?"
Guau si Ben Blas, Este otro viaje. Buenas noches.